Oh my god, what was I thinking with some of these? Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Now, cast your mind back to the start of the season. I made a video where I predicted one player from each championship club who I thought would have a big season and really had a point to prove this time round. Fair to say that I was a little bit off with some of these selections, but nevertheless, if you do go on to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like if we get it to 300. That would be massively appreciated. Without any further ado, let's jump into this one. Barnsley Callum Styles, towards the end of the season, he put in a string of fantastic performances, and heading into next season, I think he could prove himself to be a key figure in this Barnsley side. Okay, so we've actually had a decent start to the video here. Callum Styles, I do think, has had a fantastic year for Barnsley and has been a part of their meteoric rise this season. 4 goals, 3 assists. He is by far and away one of the most talented youngsters that we've got in the EFL at the moment, and as good going forward as he is defensively. Okay, we'll take a bit of credit for that one because Callum Styles has been very good this season. Let's see who I was saying for Birmingham. Birmingham, Ivan Sunjic. It was a big transfer last summer, came over for £7 million. Now, Birmingham fans, I don't know if it's me, but I just don't really get Ivan Sunjic. Let me know down below what you guys have made of his season overall, because from sort of an outside looking in and the sort of price tag that was outlaid for him, I just don't think he's delivered so far. There's been glimmers at times when I've thought, oh my god, there's a player there. Like when he initially signed for Birmingham, I thought they had a cracking player on their hands. That goal he scored away at Derby the other season, still one of my favourites that's been scored in the Championship. It was an absolute worldie. But overall so far, I'm just not convinced that it's happened for him. Blackburn Rovers Sam Gallagher, another big transfer from last summer, came over from Southampton for £5 million. I'd say he's had a bit of an indifferent season at Blackburn this time round. He did score 7 goals, which wasn't the worst, goal return in the world, but I think that Rovers fans were expecting a little bit more now. Yeah, so it's been another fairly similar season this time round for Sam Gallagher. He has scored 1 more goal. He's got 8 goals this season for Blackburn. He's played pretty much everywhere across that forward line, and I'm still not 100% sold on him so far, but he is slowly getting there maybe. He always seems to have an absolute worldie of a game against Preston every season, which always annoys me, but you still feel like there's more to come. Bournemouth Dominic Solanke. Now, with it looking increasingly unlikely that the likes of Callum Wilson and Josh King will be staying at Bournemouth for their championship campaign, the goal-scoring onus could fall upon the shoulders of Dominic Solanke. Okay, so this one turned out to be a decent call from myself. Dom Solanke has had a fantastic season leading the line for Bournemouth with 15 goals and 8 assists to his name this season. Much happier with that call. Bristol City Adam Nadjie, like a few players we're going to talk about on today's list, he started the season out really well after making the move over to Bristol City, but in the end, his first season in England ended as a bit of a frustrating one. He picked up a bit of an injury. I mean, he has had more football this time round for Bristol City. He's had 25 starts for them this season, but it's been a real turgid year for them where I think it's been tough for any sort of individual to stand out, really. I do remember Bristol City fans being very excited about his addition at the time, but so far, it's not quite landed like a few people thought it might. For Brentford, I'm going to go for Joao Valencia. You have the impression that probably Ollie Watkins and Sideburn Rama will be on their way out, so Brentford will be looking for the replacements for those players. Could a player like Valencia step up? No, he couldn't step up. In the end, he was sent out on loan to Legia Warsaw, where, judging by his Wikipedia page, this season wasn't all too successful. During his season affected by injury and poor form, Valencia made just 12 appearances and scored no goals. After 3 months without being named in the matchday squad, he made an early departure from the club in April 2021. Not the greatest of shouts in the world. Cardiff City Robert Glatzel, I'd say he had a respectable first season in England. He scored 7 goals for Cardiff in the Championship this season. His form very much went in and out throughout the season, although I did think he got better as the year went on. Yeah, I really thought that Glatzel may turn himself into something this season for Cardiff, but it's just not worked out, has it? Keith Moore's obviously been the main man for Cardiff this season in terms of goals, and Glatzel was ultimately shipped out on loan to Mainz in the second half of the season. Coventry City Matty Godden, this is going to be his first time at this level. 29 years old, Matty Godden. He scored 14 goals for them last season, their top scorer in League One. And with a promoted side making that transition, a goal scorer is always important. Okay, so I don't think that this was the worst shout in the world. He started out really quite well at Coventry this season, picked up an injury at a bad time and missed the majority of the season after that, but his strike rate has been decent for the minutes he's played. He's averaged a goal every 3 starts for Coventry this season. Really, it was just a shame about the injury. Derby County Christian Bielik, we didn't get to see all too much of him last season as he picked up an injury, but came over for a record fee around about £8 million. Prior to his injury, I think he was really starting to pick up in form, so when he does get back in, he's got that point to prove. Christian Bielik, I feel bad for the guy. He has just had no luck whatsoever since making that move to Derby. I was speaking then about him having an injury, and he's missed the majority of this season with an injury as well. When Derby had that brief moment of this season with Christian Bielik in their team, their form completely shot up. He was the difference for them in midfield, and he's ultimately probably one of the best holding midfielders in the Championship. The guy is that good. He just cannot catch a break with his look of injuries at the moment. Huddersfield Town, Alex Pritchard. Let's move on to the next one. Luton Town, Simon Sluga. He arrived for a club record fee in the summer, didn't start out well and actually got dropped at one point. I actually think getting dropped to the bench and then coming back into the side probably helped out with his confidence, because when he did get back in, much improved towards the end of the season. Okay, so I'm actually quite happy with this one. Luton's defensive record has been much more assured this season, and if you watched yesterday's video where we went over who has been each Championship club's most improved player this season, I picked out Simon Sluga for Luton, so yeah, fairly happy with that shout. Middlesbrough, Britta Assombalonga. Now, Assombalonga is a funny old player because he ended the season with a relatively decent goal return, 11 goals, 2 assists. But whenever you watch him play, he must frustrate the hell out of Borough fans at times, and I think that there is the potential for a real good partnership there. Assombalonga and Fletcher, we saw the beginning of that towards the end of the season. Well, unfortunately for me, the Assombalonga-Ashley Fletcher partnership never quite worked out this season for Middlesbrough, probably because they didn't actually get all too much time on the pitch together. Between them, they only scored the 7 goals for Middlesbrough this season and have since both been released. Millwall, I'm going to go for new signing Troy Parrott, who's come on loan from Spurs this season. We've spoken about this one a few times on the channel recently, but I was putting all my hopes on Troy Parrott being unreal for Millwall this season, and I actually predicted them to finish in the top 6 this season, but thanks to some bad injury luck when he first made the move and not really gelling with the side once he did get his fitness back up, it was a move that didn't work out. One player who I think could really step back up to the mark could be Hernandez. He had a pretty disappointing season in the Premier League. I think it's fair to say 1 goal, 2 assists for him, but last time round in the Championship, he was absolutely explosive. I seem to have a real knack on this video so far to be picking players who have had a really torrid time this season with injuries, but unfortunately for Hernandez, spent the majority of this season out injured for Norwich, and those creative roles out wide for Norwich were ultimately filled up by Buendia and Cantwell. Nottingham Forest, I'm going to say Tendai Darikwa and Cole Jenkinson. I had 2 shouts at this one for Forest and I got them both terribly wrong. Cole Jenkinson's only made 1 start for Forest this season, and Tendai Darikwa is now playing his football for Wigan in League One. My thinking behind that shout was basically, I had the vision that someone needed to fill the role that was left by Matty Cash this season. Ultimately, they obviously ended up signing Cyrus Christie, who went ahead and did that, and Jenkinson and Darikwa this season have been nowhere near the squad. Preston North End, Scott Sinclair. I think that Sinclair showed his quality in moments during the second half of this season, and that's all they were really, just isolated moments now and again. But going into next season, we want to see at least the player who we all thought we were investing in when we did bring him in from Celtic in January. Do you know what? I don't really know what to make of Scott Sinclair and the move he's made over to North End. We sort of live in a time where a signing either has to be unbelievable or terrible, and Scott Sinclair's sort of just in the middle. Like, he's just been alright since he's come over, to be honest with you. He did finish as our top scorer this season with 9 goals, and he did have some of those moments of quality like I was just speaking about. You know, he scored a goal this season with that fantastic chip from the halfway line against Bournemouth. Since his arrival, he's just a bit of a hit and miss player, to be honest with you. QPR, Elias Chair. QPR have been fairly good with replacing their creative players. Last summer when they lost Luke Freeman, I was wondering where the goals were going to come from. This season, Eze's really stepped up to the mark, and then should Eze leave this summer, Elias Chair could be the next man to step up into that role. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with this shout in the end. Chair's had a good season for QPR with 8 goals and 4 assists. Should have plenty more assists, by the way. There was that bonkers stat that was going around the start of the season where Chair was like leading the way for like the most chances created in Europe, and he still hadn't registered an assist or something like that. But yeah, he's a top player, Chair. You know, he's got that low centre of gravity, can just wriggle his way through players, and like I say, QPR just seem to have a knack of developing really good number 10s. Reading, Lucas Joao. His goals to game ratio this season has been absolutely superb. He only made 12 starts for Reading and then 7 appearances from the bench. In that time, scored 6 goals and got 3 assists. The guy just couldn't stay injury free. If he manages to do that next season, I fancy him to have a really good season. Okay, now we're getting into some of the good shouts I had. Lucas Joao has had an absolutely excellent season with Reading, and for the most part has managed to stay injury free. 19 goals for the striker in the end. He really hit the ground running at the start of the season. The goals dried up slightly as the year went on, but nevertheless, his best goal scoring season to date. Rotherham United, Kyle Vassell. Last time round in the Championship when he was at Rotherham, it just didn't happen for Kyle Vassell in the 18-19 season. 23 appearances, didn't manage to find the back of the net. Well, unfortunately, it didn't happen this time for Kyle Vassell in the Championship either. After not really getting all too many minutes in the first first half of the season. He was sent out on loan to Fleetwood for the second half of the season. Sheffield Wednesday, Adam Reach. We all know what he's got in his locker though, some of the outrageous goals that he scored over the years. That's the player that Wednesday need back next season. Yeah, Wednesday didn't really get a peak Adam Reach this season either, did they, to be honest with you? He got 5 goals, 3 assists. I'm interested to see where he ends up next, because he has sort of been off the ball for the last couple of years now, I think it's fair to say. Don't get me wrong, there were moments this season where it looked like he still got that bit about him, but those moments have just been too few and far between. Stoke City, Adam Davis, I think he's got a point to prove by the fact that he's going to want to nail down that #1 shirt at Stoke. He ended the season fantastically for them, and boy did he have to be patient for his chance to come around, you know. I managed to pick another player here who's missed the majority of the season through injury. This video must have been a curse or something like that, but yeah, Adam Davis obviously picked up an injury near the start of the season, didn't he, after ending the last season really well. They've sort of shuffled about that goalkeeper position quite a few times this season. They've had Bursic, Angus Gunn, and then Adam Davis managed to get himself back in towards the end of the season. I still do rate Adam Davis though. I think another, full pre-season as he is able to build himself properly back up, and he'll be good once again. Swansea City, Burton Salina, with Conor Gallagher returning from his loan spell, they need someone to replace him in that forward 3 that works so well towards the end of the season. Could Burton Salina be that man for Swansea next season? Unfortunately, we never really got to see Burton Salina in a Swansea shirt again. He left in September to go to France, didn't he? He was a bit of a frustrating player, Salina, because you could tell that, in terms of technical and natural ability, he had it. It was just another question of him doing that sort of thing on a consistent basis. But yeah, I've still always had quite a bit of a soft spot for Burton Salina. I just like watching him play. Watford, Isaac Success. This might turn out to be an absolutely awful shout. Yes, in the end, it was an absolutely awful shout. I had it in my head that the likes of sort of the old guard, like the Deeneys and the Andre Greys, would probably be moved aside by Watford, and someone like an Isaac Success could see this season as the chance for him to be their main man. But even when he has been available for them this season, he's not been their first choice to go to. Just the 1 goal for Isaac Success this season. Not exactly been the most successful season. I'm sorry, I'm never going to make that joke ever again. Wycombe, Adebayo Akinfenwa. It's 2020 and Akinfenwa is going to be playing in the Championship. What is this? Honestly, I'm excited to see how he does. Okay, so at the end of the day, Akinfenwa's obviously only scored the 1 goal for Wycombe this season, but despite that, he's still been a bit of a handful for them going forward, hasn't he? He won 6.6 aerial duels per 90, and at 39, you've got to give the guy some leeway, haven't you? So yeah, I'd say he's been a useful player for Wycombe this season.